Amen.
James, we got you on camera. Can you spell your middle name for us?
No, you can't make me.
What is your full name for the audience?
Okay, all right.
Full name.
So my full name is James Kilibaba Tume Jr. That is my full name.
Now, if I were to type that out in the description,
I don't think I cannot spell Kilibaba for you, dude. It begins with K.
Your identification.
Okay, let's see.
it's the KG, isn't it?
Yeah, this is James Tume.
Is it KGB?
James Tume J. It's KG.
Is the G
It's
silent?
KG. The G is silent. Yeah, the G is silent.
Oh, that was kind of a joke. Okay.
Yeah, no, it is. No.
I look dumb.
Kilibaba.
Yeah, Kilibaba. Yeah, it's
Kilibaba.
KG. The G is silent. It's like G.
As long as your name's not Bubba, it works that.
Welcome to Generational Faith Podcast with me, Kyle Adamson, a Generational X bivocational pastor.
And me, Jacob Zerkel, a semi-millennial associate pastor.
And we are here to entertain you with the greatest podcast ever recorded, as long as you lower your expectations.
But most importantly, we want to provide you with authentic discussion on the Bible and how all of us are meant to live a life that makes God proud. Well, hi guys.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
Good.
I'm
How are
good.
you?
Doing well? Yeah. All right. How you doing, Daniel?
Great.
Elijah, how are you? Got a nice thumbs up. Cool. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Generational Faith. We're really excited about our episode today. It's going to be a little bit different. We haven't done an episode like this in a long time. I think our last interview type epised was Dan,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
was a year ago. So
And
we're going to be interviewing
look what we
somebody.
did with him. He's out of the picture now. So
Is
James,
that
hopefully-
well for me?
James with the new Dan.
I'll be leaving the church soon.
The new Dan. Hi.
the new Dan.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I thought you're the new Dan.
Oh, wait a minute.
I can be the new Dan.
All right. Anyway, so the reason we have James on today is I thought it would be important to talk about an issue that's kind of a hot button issue, and so we're going to be discussing immigration today. You know, I think a lot of times immigration is just something that we hear about on the news, or maybe we read about it in the headlines. But I thought it would be vital for us today to put a story alongside immigration. And so, again, our guest today is someone many of you know and love, James Tume. He's a member of Center Church. James, I'm going to introduce you. You'll be able to introduce yourself in just a second. So if I say anything that's wrong, you can just correct me later on. How about that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So James immigrated to the United States from Liberia when he was just 7 years old. We actually did the math before the episode. He was 7.
We figured it out.
We did figure it out. And he immigrated here during one of the darkest times in Liberia's history, which was their second civil war. Is that correct?
Yeah, second.
So in this episode, we're going to learn about James's story, what it was like coming here to the United States, and also talk a little bit about how his faith has sustained him along the way. So James, before we get started, for those listening who may not know you very well, or maybe at all, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, James Tume. I've been going to Center for it's pretty much since I've been here.
Well, how old are you now?
Well, right now I'm 25. I turned 26 July 7th. So
Happy early birthday.
yeah, I'm getting a little bit more up there.
Do you want us to sing you happy birthday?
No, please, no need.
we need to
We'll
do
let
that.
Daniel lead
I
that.
already
That's
feel
true.
weird being on the other side of 20.
Oh, yes, that's
What?
destructive. Yes, that's awful.
It's only a matter of time until
Calm down now.
Yeah, until I'm an old man. Like,
Give anything to be
Damn.
25 again.
okay, all right.
You guys are
But I've been going to Center for, I think, close to either 20 years now. I've been part of the youth for I don't know how many years. Cheryl was our youth leader at the time when I was there. All throughout her tenure. After she left, I stayed on. Actually, even before she left, I stayed on to help with the youth. Daniel, Jacob, and Sam, all of us there. When you came on and became the youth leader, I stayed on and helped with that as well. So I've been part of church activity for so long. This is my church home. It's been amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So outside of church, who are you?
Well, I currently work for the Indiana Children's Museum, or the Indianapolis Children's Museum. That's my
Sponsorship?
mascot right there.
Yeah, there we go.
I got the little red
They got
seat
money to
mascot.
sponsor us. Yeah.
Yeah.
For then, I spent about 5 years working at Walmart. During that time, I went to college. Currently have a major in history, specifically U.S. European history, or a minor in religious studies. Most of my time is taken up doing work. I do a lot of stuff at home, around the house. I live with my sister, my mom, my nephew, my niece, Sam and Sindora. I'm sure some of you guys might know them if you go to the working downstairs, or you can see a big kid walking around with me. He's in middle school.
Yeah,
he is big. He needs to play football.
He needs to.
We're talking about it. We're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out.
Kyle, you should have seen him on the mission trip.
He's a big boy.
Is he really? I know he's kind of a quiet.
He's just got
guy. I didn't know.
natural strength.
He does.
Unlike,
I have to work for it.
I'm kidding.
But yeah, outside of church, I spend most of my time hanging out with family. I spend most of my Sundays are spent here helping the youth in the evenings when I can. I love to run. I love playing video games. Me and Jacob play video games a lot together. Love reading. Yeah, just standard stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, for those who don't know much about Liberia, because I mentioned in our introduction that you are from Liberia, I think most Americans, when they hear Liberia, they would have no idea where it's at, so they wouldn't be able to pinpoint it on a map.
Do you think most people would figure out it's from Africa?
I don't even know, because this is going to sound bad. It doesn't have an African name.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know?
Unless you know my middle name, you wouldn't think I had an African name.
It's not
I think my last name Tomei is a little bit.
But it's not like South Africa, where it's like, oh yeah, I know where that's at.
Sure, yeah.
So no, you're not wrong in that. Most people, when they meet me, I don't have an accent. I'm not up here like repping the Liberian flag or whatever. So the first.
Oh, we should have gotten a big Liberian flag.
Liberian flag. It pretty much just looks like the American flag, just with one star. It's really not that much different. But yeah, most people don't immediately think like, oh, that's James. He's an immigrant, because I don't sound, I don't have an accent. But it's not like it's something I try to hide. It's just not something that comes through conversation most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think you've been in the U.S. for so long. I would think you feel American just because you've been here for so long.
Yes. No. Completely. When I was doing my studies in college, one of the reasons I went into history, besides really loving history, was because I wanted to understand American culture more. And I thought the best way to understand American culture was to understand American history. And the main reason I focus more on modern American, modern European history, because I had the belief that American history has been so shaped and when I say modern, I mean like 1900s. You're talking about like World War I, World War II, to the Civil Rights Movement, all that. I think that period has shaped American history so much that in order to understand it well, I had to understand that past. And I felt like it was my duty as an American citizen to understand that, or not American citizen, but as a person, not yet exactly, as a person living in America, I felt like it was my duty to understand that and have a good grasp of what this country is and what it was.
So, for those listening who don't know much about Liberia, how would you describe like the culture or people, or even just like your own memories of Liberia? Because you lived there for 7 years.
Yeah.
So how would you just describe Liberia?
And have you gone back at all?
I have not gone back.
Okay.
Since I've left. So I would say the first 7 years, I don't have a ton of memories of the, just because I was so young. I can tell you it's hot and wet, because that's the climate of Liberia. There's a joke there, even during the dry seasons, it's still the wet season, because it's always hot and it's always wet, which is, in my opinion, pretty sucky. But as far as like the culture goes, I don't know if I would say personally, I don't know if I'm like the best person to speak on, just because like I haven't been there in such a long time, so I couldn't tell you right now on the ground like how the culture's like. But from my own family and from the people who I've met in the Liberian diaspora here, Liberia, like the people there, the best way I can describe them as very proud people. Not proud in a bad way. Sure. My sister and my mom, they don't try to hide who they are. They're very proud of the place they came from. They're very proud of their culture. My mom always talks about how one day retiring in Liberia. because that's her home. That's somewhere that that you can't forget about. So that's an aspect of that Liberian culture, the love for your country. And you look at the conditions there and you say, well, why would you rather live there than live here in America? Where you can go to Starbucks if you want to. There's a Starbucks on every
Starbucks
corner.
in Liberia?
As far as I know, no.
Okay.
So why would you want to live there instead of here? It's because they have that care and that love, and that's a deep part of that country, that pride. So that's one way I'll describe it. Another way I'll describe it is hardworking. Everybody there is always on their hustle grind set. That's kind of the way I like to think about it. Everybody's there is trying to make a little bit more of that money.
Sure.
There's I might get in trouble for saying this, but part of the Liberian identity, it's kind of like wanting to like flaunt, even if you don't have any like thing to flaunt.
Yeah.
Like you always, when you ever go to Liberia, you always see like you'll see people with like the newest smartphones, whatever, even though like they're living in like a income, but like they want to flaunt.
I think that's something that isn't. You're saying that's part of Liberian culture. I see that here in the United States even too.
You always like the shoes, the clothes, and that's.
I don't have that problem with my shoes.
Yeah.
Where my mom and shoes.
But it's one of the reasons you'll see my mom. She always looks for Sunday best because that's part of it. It's more of like you got to present yourself. You always want to look good no matter where you're at. That's not something that I personally believe in. Like, oh my god, I look the way I look. I have a Google Pixel. I personally don't need the best stuff. I don't like.
So are you admitting right now that the Google Pixel is not the best phone?
It's not. I don't think it's the best phone. I like it because I think it's practical, and I like practicality.
We have you on record now saying these things.
Yes.
FYI.
Yes.
I would still recommend buying it. I just know it's not like an iPhone or like the best Android. It gets the job done. So that's a big part of Liberian culture, which I always find very fascinating because I watch my mom, I watch my sister, and wherever they go, they always look their best. I'm like, that's interesting. That's
So
cool.
what caused your family to come here? Talking about the Civil Wars, and was that it?
So partially. So my dad left Liberia about 3 years before we would come. So he left around 2003, 2004, around there. He left and he came here to America. And he was here originally, I think, for a conference. I think that's how my mom explained it. So he was here for a conference and he was doing like work here. And during that time, because the Civil War was going on and there was so much stuff happening, he was able to apply for asylum. And for anybody here who doesn't know what asylum is, it's a process that you can apply for if you believe that the place that you're at is dangerous, or if let's say you're a person who's a dissident and like the government is trying to harm you, you can apply for asylum.
Can you still do that today as you always have? You
can. The process itself is a little bit.
Because I know things are
tougher.
Changing
Yeah,
a lot,
yes. Okay. Not to get political yet. I don't know if this conversation is gonna go there, but one of the big things now is the idea of people misusing asylum and not really needing asylum and like using it as a way to like get into the country. I know that's a conversation that was had for people at the border who are coming from places like Honduras and Nicaragua, countries in South America that are pretty destitute, but and they'll cite that as a reason for seeking asylum. And I know the current administration is trying to crack down on that more. I don't know. I think it's still possible if you have like a very legitimate claim, but I don't know how they would define legitimate as far as that goes right now.
Yeah.
But my dad was able to get granted asylum because there was a civil war going on at the time. It was very dangerous area. So I think that's a pretty fair reason. So he got asylum, and while he was there, while he was here in America, he was working, and eventually because he was actually in North Carolina for a while, he came down here to Indiana with one of his friends, and at least as my mom explains it, they were driving by. They were going to another church, not Center. They're driving by, and my dad saw Center Church, and he saw the parking lot. And he saw that was a Methodist church, and he was like, I kind of want to check that out. So one Sunday he came to Center Church, and I'll say this right now, and this is just props right here. It was Ralph. It was one of the first people to greet him, and one of the first people to make him feel welcome, and invited him to their Sunday school, and he started attending that.
I can see Ralph being that way.
And from there, Center quickly became his home, and he eventually moved from North Carolina down here in Indiana and started attending Center full time. And it was during that, and he did that for about 3 years. And it was during that time that he started getting ready to apply for asylum for me and my sisters and my brothers. And so we began that process. And the Center was actually very, very helpful in that process. They not only helped coach my dad through the process of getting us here, but they actually helped pay for the tickets for me and my sisters and my mom. And that's my mom always tells me about, and something I'm also thankful about.
I do. Leading before you got here, what was the conversation like? What did your mom or your dad tell you when you guys were getting ready to come to America, a new country? Why you were doing it? What the transition would be like? Did they give you a heads up?
I mean, I was 7, so I think my mindset at that time was, oh, okay, I guess we're going somewhere new. But
I think it'd be hard. I mean, I just think of how hard it is for any of us that had to change, which I didn't really have to do this, but for people that their parents move and you have to change the school district or even go out of state, it's like that's a huge change. You're leaving friends behind, even at age 7, but you're going to
you live on a different continent.
Yes.
Not just country.
Yeah.
The whole different part of the world.
Across the world where life is just different.
Yeah.
That would be tough.
Yeah, so I don't think I understood just how big of a change it was until we actually got here to the United States, because it was only after we got here and I started actually attending a new school. I can't remember my second elementary school was Abraham Lincoln. I don't remember what my first one was. I started attending a new school, and that was when I kind of understood the culture shock. One of the, and this is a kind of a funny story, and it's going to explain why I don't like to eat salads. So, trust me,
I didn't know that about you.
I hate salads. So,
okay.
in Liberian cuisine, there's this thing called sala. So sala, the best way you can understand it is it kind of like it's like macaroni salad. Okay. Right. Okay. It's like macaroni made of mayonnaise. It usually has sausage and stuff in it. So this thing called sala. So one of my first day in elementary school, I going through the lunch line, and then I'm trying to figure out the food. Like there's pizza and there's all this stuff. I'm like, I got no idea what this is.
This is gonna sound really naive. Have you never eaten pizza?
No, I've never had pizza before. I never had pizza. I never had. So I'm going through line, and the lunch lady's like, so what would you like? And I was like, she's like, we have salad. I'm like, salad? Like, no, we have salad. Like, salad? He's like, sure, okay. So, I take the salad, and she gives me
you're like, this ain't it.
What is this? I try, I put some ranch on it. I'm like, I can't eat this. This is. So I go the entire day. I didn't eat anything for lunch. I'm angry. I'm grumpy. I go home. I tell them, I'm like, Mom, they gave me salad, but it wasn't salad. And she's like, she's showing us. She's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, salad? Salad? What? So, that's the explanation I like to give for why I don't like eating salad. Okay. I think it's it's a trauma. It's a trauma in my brain now from that one moment. But that being said, that was one of the big culture shocks. The food. And just the loudness. So Liberia is not it's not a very technologically advanced country, so there's not a whole lot of technology everywhere. So coming to America, cars everywhere, lights everywhere, constant TV going right. It was like imagine moving to New York City, going from India to New York City.
You're describing the movie Coming to America.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm an Eddie Murphy moment.
I have seen that.
Are you really a prince that we don't know about?
Maybe.
Maybe you're just hiding it.
Maybe I got some. I could have some. I got some I got some Princeton blood in me because my dad and my dad's father,
Right.
they have some land in Liberia, so maybe there's some.
There you go.
But yeah, it was
around royalty right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna need your help unlocking my wealth, so I'm gonna send you an email later.
All right, yo.
Wait a minute.
What are those
like
emails?
$100.
Yes.
I'll get you figured out later, Kyle. But I think that was the biggest culture shock. Just like the sounds and the lights and the different foods and
Did you have this again? All my questions are going to sound so naive. So I apologize. Did you have an accent?
I did. So I did have an accent when I first moved here. It was a very thick accent. It was fairly thick. I think the general idea is the cutoff is around 10 years. So if you if you move to a foreign country around before you're 10 years old, you're usually able to lose the accent if you want to, if you like work at it or whatever. Usually able. So I came here when I was 7, so I was able to eventually lose the accent. But at the time, I had a very thick accent.
Did that ever cause problems like with the other kids?
Yes. So I was bullied quite a bit. If you met me when I was very little, I was a lot more shy than I am
remember
now.
you when you were very little.
I wasn't as outgoing just because I was afraid to talk because I was afraid I was going to say something stupid.
So
or
who would bully you? White kids, black kids?
It was just
Coming
in general. Yeah, in general.
About your accent or others?
Accent. Like I didn't understand like American culture. Like kids would be talking about Disney Channel. I'm like, I don't know what Disney Channel is. Since our family was poor, we didn't have a cable. I grew up on PBS Kids. I knew what Arthur and all those shows, right? Like that's what I watched. I watched public TV, so I didn't know I didn't know any of the fashion trends. I didn't know any of the cool stuff. I just, it was a fish out of water. So, that was something that I had to overcome. It took me a long while in order to like be confident enough to start and it was something I had to work on. I remember I would when we did eventually get enough money to get cable, I would watch Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I'll watch Hannah Montana, and I'll watch all these shows. I would watch Zoe One. I watch all these shows, and I'll try to imitate. I'll try to imitate American culture. I was like, okay, this is how they talk. Okay, so I'll try my best to try to.
So you would learn
talk
from watching the TV shows.
Yeah, in order to understand American culture. So,
That's smart.
in order to try to, as much as possible, blend in and integrate. And this is a conversation that's had a lot among immigrants, immigration community. Should you try to integrate into the American society? Is it should you right to force your kids to try? Because for at least back then, I don't know how it is now. Back then, there was a big pressure. Like even if you don't have anybody telling you, hey, you have to do this, the social expectation is there. That you want to blend in. Nobody wants to stand out, especially if you're a kid. You don't want to stand out. So the social pressure is there to learn the language, to understand the culture, and in many ways to try to become Americanized. And
so it sounds kind of like you're almost stuck right between two worlds, where you have you're in between almost. You have your Liberian culture, and then you have this American culture, and you have to navigate that as 7, 8, 9 years old. I mean, that must have been difficult.
Yeah, and you go to school and you have to act American, and then you go home and I still my mom still spoke the way she spoke. We still ate the same food, so we still have the same Liberian culture at home. I remember one of the things I told my mom. I told her to never make me lunch food because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to because there was a lot of rice and soup. I didn't I was like, what do they think my food smells weird? I can't bring this food to lunch. So I never brought my food to lunch. Or even through high school, I would always eat the food that they had at lunch, or I would if I wanted to, I'd make myself a PB&J. So I would, and it was part of that expectation to blend in and become. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to want to integrate. I think as much as possible you should try, but it's something that kind of that I see for people who are just getting here, for immigrants who are just getting here. I can spot that pressure that's there. Even if you don't have anybody shouting at you, you have to speak English. there's always that social pressure there.
That's actually, I wanted to follow up on that. A big thing that I've realized over the years is that it's so easy for us as people when somebody's going through something tough. It's like, man, I can imagine how tough that is. It's like, no, unless you've gone through it. Mm-hmm. If somebody's going through cancer, I can't say, yeah, I know how you feel. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. I haven't been through the treatments. I haven't been through the despair of hearing that you've got this. It's the same thing I would think as an immigrant. You came here, you did things the right way. We know people that have done things the right way. Some people haven't. Some people have done because they're fear for their life and they have nothing else, which I kind of understand. But my thought is you probably can understand a lot of what the immigrants feel. How much do you look at things that have gone up, growing up here and even currently, and try and think, man, I know what they're going through? Do you feel like you pay more attention to the immigration issues because of your background?
Yeah. So for me, I've tried to cut down on it a little bit more, but I'm a very politically in touch person. Mm-hmm. I try to, and it's part of that idea that I think as American citizens should be aware of what's happening in your country. Yeah. So I try to be as politically in touch as I can. So I pay attention to a lot of the issues that are going, including the immigration issues, and that is one that touches my heart deeply because I'm a first generation immigrant. Mm-hmm. A lot of my family are first generation immigrant. The only family that I have that's not first generation are my nephew and my nieces. Mm-hmm. So it's an issue that cuts very deep to my core. So especially now in this current climate where it is such a big part of the political discussion, hearing the way that it's spoken about and the way that sometimes I think some people forget that it's people they're talking to, and it kind of becomes just an issue and not a.
It's just a stat line on a sheet of paper.
Yeah, exactly. It's a thing to run on, and people forget it's people's lives that are being affected directly by it. So it's definitely something that I paid more attention to during the lead up to the current election and all that, just because it was such a big part of the atmosphere at the time. And for me, by the time this election happened, I'd already gotten my green card. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, I don't want to say I felt like I was safe and secure, but at the very least, that process was done. But I knew so many people who they were still in it. They were in the and they were scared. They were scared about the way that things were being discussed, and I know a lot of people who felt like they weren't being thought of as people, but rather just statistics.
Can you see both sides? Because I completely agree. Mm-hmm. I think too often we look at the statistics, and even though we think, okay, our country was founded by immigrants, mm-hmm. But on the other hand, there are also people that have taken advantage of that as well. Yes, yeah. And where do you find the happy medium? How do you make it? I mean, I've got thoughts and opinions what I'd like to see. What I don't know how to do. I mean, I'm not in any of that. My question is, do you see the other side? I have a doctor, a friend of mine who's really political, and he says, we wouldn't allow just any homeless person to come live in your house, would you? Because you want to be nice, you want to be kind. Mm-hmm. And he said that's similar to let anybody they want come into the country. Yeah. What do you say to something like that? Can you see kind of both sides in the struggle on this?
100%. I completely understand the wanting to make sure the country is safe and secure. Mm-hmm. I live here. My nephew, my niece live here. My family lives here. I want the country to be as secure and as safe for anybody. Yeah. I want them to be able to grow up in a strong and safe country. So I completely understand that that feeling of making sure you understand who's coming, and more than anything, as you said before, my family, we went through the entire process, right? We came here on asylum.
You did it the right way.
Yes, we came here on asylum. We spent, I don't know, thousands of dollars going through the immigration, because it's not free. No. Going through the immigration process.
Could you explain that process just a little bit? Because I often hear Americans say, "Oh, well, they should have just done it the right way." Yes. But sometimes, when we just say the process, that process is not just boom, boom, boom.
And I try to think of myself. if I'm in a, I mean, we've all been, well, everybody but James in this room has been to Haiti. We've seen what desolate life is like. And when we were there, the government wasn't chaos like it is now. Right now, their gangs are over. Last I heard, gangs are still overrunning the country.
Yes, yeah.
So if I have a family somewhere where gangs are, I'm doing anything I can to keep them safe, whether I have the money or not.
Yeah.
So I understand that side of it.
Yes.
And so that's always my plight. It's like, how do we make that available, yet make it so they do it the right way? Is there a way to speed it up? A way? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to all that.
But so I'm gonna
quick
to
go Jacobs.
To speak on Jacobs, I can only tell you the process that I went through, and that's just one process. So like I said before, my dad came here on asylum. Eventually, he applied for asylum for me and my brothers and my sisters.
You still have family who are.
I do still have, yes. So my older brothers, their asylum application got denied. Okay. I actually asked my mom about this recently, like why it was denied. She said they don't know. They never told them. My guess, if I had to guess, the country at the time was in a civil war, or it had just 2006 had just come out of civil war. They were men of military age, and even if
worry of were they involved?
Yes. Even they weren't, but even if even if the government wanted them, like there's that caution there. So if I had to guess, that's probably why. Like they never told them why, so I can't say for sure. But they also denied my other sister. Her name is Raleigh. They also denied her, and as my mom explained it, so Raleigh is technically my stepsister. I actually have two stepsisters. I don't make differences. I just call them my sisters. I don't really care if stepsister or not. Yeah. But she was my stepsister, and she didn't have, because the DNA that was provided was based on my dad, because we're coming on his asylum. They didn't have the same DNA as my dad, so she said maybe that's probably why that they denied her as well. So it was only me, my two sisters, my sisters Rebecca and Eve, and my mom were allowed to come. So I do have three siblings in Liberia, but after getting here, the process of actually going about and becoming a citizen, or I'm right now my green card. My
like
sister,
you're still on that path.
Yes, I'm still on that path. My sister and my mom, they're citizens, and my dad was a citizen. The process of becoming a citizen, it's not easy. I don't remember it's not immigration. It's USCIS. Here, let me see if I can find one.
He's got a binder.
I got a binder.
Wow. Show the camera your binder.
This has like all of my paperwork in it. If my house burned down, this is one of the things I'll grab.
You need to keep that in a fireproof safe.
Yes, I keep it.
That's my thought. If this had my future in this country in jeopardy, I would keep very close control of that.
I keep it somewhere super
very
safe.
Organized. Yeah.
But it's organized from like hopefully from oldest and newest. But the process for me for getting my green card started all the way back in 2016. So that was when I started. And I will say the reason why I just got my green card in 2022. I can check my green card in a little bit. But the reason why my process took so long is because my dad came here on asylum. And the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to file for your kids' citizenship first before you file for your own. Because once you become a citizen, everybody who's here under asylum underneath you, they automatically get kicked off of asylum. So then you have to go through the process of getting asylum again. In order to then.
So did your dad become a citizen?
He became a citizen. So my sisters and my mom got their citizenship, but my dad became a citizen before I could get my citizenship. So I got taken, and I didn't understand this until like long into the process. I think I was in Chicago at a meeting, and I asked him, I was like, "So what's taking so long?" He was like, "Well, you still have you just now finished getting your asylum, so now you have to go and actually get the process of getting your green card."
Okay.
So that's why it took so long for me. My mom's only took about 2 years. Mine took like 6 years.
No, were you ever nervous about they could deport you? I mean, is that something that? Because I mean, I think of in our church.
Yeah.
I love that we have so many Liberian families that come to our church, which has in the past been mostly a predominantly white church, but I love that we've got so many families, and I think I've seen a lot of cultures like Liberians stick together. I mean, I don't know if that's all like Africa's like that, but I know that the Chen churches often stick together like that as well. But I think of our own Edric, who's coming up, who graduated high school and has been trying to get a green card. His dad lost his. I mean, a lot of the same issues, but I just wonder, is he okay? Or did you feel like you were okay?
I mean, for the most part, growing up, I didn't really even know about the immigration or anything like that. So for the most part, I guess you could say I was blissfully unaware because it didn't affect my life. I could go to school just fine. I was able to do all the stuff that kids could do. I didn't really have to worry about that. It wasn't until like high school, sophomore year, junior year of high school that it actually started to take effect because my junior year, I started thinking about what am I going to do after high school, looking towards college. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I also want to get a car. You're a teenager, you want to get a car. So my dad was like, you have to get a job because I'm not buying you a car, which fair enough. So
good dad.
I looked at getting my first job, and I decided to get a job at the Walmart that he had been working at. He had been working there for years. So I went to get a job there, and it wasn't until I started that process of trying to get a job that I realized like how messed up my immigration was because this, I don't know if I can show this off the camera, but this is my employment authorization card. Okay. So once you get into the country, pretty much everybody gets one of these.
See the picture?
Yeah, it's me as a baby.
Man, you're a kid.
Yeah. So I can't. So you get.
And that's your employment. What?
Yeah. You're
7.
So this is the card you're supposed to show if you want to get a job. Now the problem is that you can see here. This expired in 2008. So I'm trying to go get a job. And they're like, okay, we need to see your employment authorization cards because we can't hire you without it. So I give them this, and they're like you can't use this. You're expired. It's expired. And like, okay, do you have a passport? So like, I give them my passport, and they're like, this is expired too. So like, we can't use any of this.
So it's not like something on your report card. Like if you get an F, you can draw a line and make it look like an A. You can't add a separate number to that passport.
Yeah,
if they don't notice.
Try to tweak.
You could, but
it's probably very illegal.
I'm sure there's probably a federal law against that. I'm guessing.
But it wasn't like I'm talking to HR because this is the last thing that they do. So I've gone through like the entire process and all that. So this is like the last thing they do. So I'm talking to HR, and they're like, okay, we still want to hire you. And I don't know if I should be able to, should I say this? Like we still want to hire you, but we have to figure out a way to work around this. Yeah, to make this work.
They found a way.
I had to get like a form. I don't remember what form it was, but I had to get like a form from the government that said because I think at that time I was still technically on asylum or whatever. That says it's fine for him to work without it. So that's kind of the way we went about it. But that was like my first hurdle. That was like my first time understanding like, oh man, this is gonna be a problem later. But at the time I had a job. I was working. I was getting paid. Went back to focusing on normal stuff. Got myself a car. Second hurdle came after I had graduated and I was getting ready for college. Because then I was trying to figure out how am I gonna pay for college.
FAFSA, come on, it's easy.
That's what I was thinking. Because my parents, hard workers, but they didn't have a ton of money saved. They're working pretty much paycheck to paycheck, and I wouldn't want them to. I didn't want to take out loans. I didn't want to take out debt. So I wanted to figure out a way that I could try to attend college as much as possible without jeopardizing or harming them. So first thing I thought about was FAFSA. And I don't remember who told me, but I think it was probably one of my guidance counselors, like, hey, file for FAFSA. So I filed for FAFSA, and I go through the entire process, and this is actually something, if you've never done FAFSA before, you actually have to sign up for selective service if you want FAFSA. Oh. So I had to go through the selective service thing and sign up for that as well, so I am part of the selective service, even though I could not get FAFSA because I was not a technical. So
I wonder how that would work because you're not technically able to get FAFSA, but you're signed up for selective service. So if there was a war, would you have been drafted?
Yes. You can draft.
Yeah, and you can't vote.
You can be drafted as a non-citizen living in the United States.
I didn't know that.
So I go through the process.
The funny thing is, I found out through Edric that you cannot sign up for the military without a green card. But they can be drafted, I guess.
Yes,
they
yeah.
really need you. Okay.
I'll still sign up for selective service even without a green card.
Okay.
So maybe it could be something like this, because I know I have gotten jury duty before and jury summons, and it wasn't until after I filled out the jury summons and I was like, I don't have a green card, and then they were like, okay, you're not eligible. So maybe it would have been something like a war starts. You're in the draft, and like, oh, technically we can't draft. I think they would still. I think they would still draft me. If I'm being honest,
We need all hands on
think
deck.
they would care.
Yeah, all hands on deck. They don't care.
But I go through the process, and then I get to a point, and they're like, you don't have your the term they used was a non-eligible non-citizen. So it means. So technically, you can be a non-citizen and be eligible for FAFSA. That's what a green card allows you. You're not a citizen yet, but you have a green card. So you're. But I was a non-eligible non-citizen, so I was not eligible for FAFSA, and that crushed me because I was like, how am I gonna? I still want to go to class. How am I gonna pay for school? The conclusion I came to was, well, I'm just gonna have to work full-time and go to school full-time. So that's the first 3 or so years. That's kind of how I did it. And it wasn't until the fall of my senior year that money became more of a problem. And I haven't really told anybody this, but Kyle and Cheryl, they were the people that stepped up and helped me with that. They lent me money because I was telling them, I was like, I might drop out. I might take a gap year and so I can work more, because I really didn't want to take out a loan. I did not want to go into debt. That's something I was adamant about. I didn't want to go into debt. And Kyle and Cheryl were like, we'll just lend you the money. But
you know what you did?
That's a big flex. I paid them back.
He went and paid it back.
I paid them back.
Okay.
Eventually, it took a little bit, but I paid them back.
That's right, though. I mean, a lot of people think, okay, I take that generosity and go on and just kind of forget about it. But he was very mature, very, very responsible, and paid that back, and I give him a lot of credit for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Good job, James. Did you get A's that semester? I mean, it doesn't matter. You paid it back, so who cares?
Freshman,
and he passed.
The entire
he passed. That's what matters. You've got your degree.
Freshman year. Actually, freshman year was my worst year. Freshman year, I got.
Well, it's the shock and awe of college.
Yes.
Oh my
gosh.
goodness.
Yes.
This is a little different.
The rest of the sophomore to senior year, I was on the dean list for the rest of those years.
Okay.
Like, I was all A's. But freshman year, that's why I think my GPA was 3.6 around there. If it wasn't for freshman, I think I would have been around 3.7 or 3.8.
Okay.
So
Mine was never that high. So good job.
So we've only got about
I was gonna say, we're
10
limited on
minutes
time.
on the time. So I wanted to personally, I wanted to talk kind of about the church's role.
Yes,
that's exactly what I wanted to go
So
to.
we've got a couple of different ways we could take this. Kyle, do you have any personal way you want to take it? I put a lot of different routes we could take for the church.
I wanted to get your experience. James, I've always been impressed with your Christian walk. You grew up in the church, but that doesn't mean anything. We've known a lot of people that grew up in the church that just say, I'm a Christian because I've been in church, or they just walk away. You've lived your faith out. And so I want to know, and I want our listeners to know, with what you've gone through this, you're going to understand what people are going through. Yeah. A couple of scriptures that come to my mind in the Old Testament, Leviticus 19:33 reminds us that when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. Yeah. The foreigner resides among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Now that was the Old Testament. Yeah. But we know, as told in Timothy, the Apostle Paul writes, I can't remember the exact, I think it's 2 Timothy, but he goes, all scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching and training, rebuking. And all scripture, what they knew at the time was the Old Testament, what we consider the Old Testament. Yeah. So God has not changed. This is still valid today, but we don't know we are to act as if the others are, like Matthew 25:35 goes on, for I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. Mm-hmm. Jesus says, how you treat others is how you treat me. Yeah. What should be the church's or Christian response with the immigration?
Yeah. So I'm at two minds. So for me, as far as a religious perspective goes, I see it pretty straightforward. I always go back to the story of the Good Samaritan as my backbone for how I believe I should treat people and treat other people. I think that the church, first and foremost, should be there to love people and welcome people, and that includes that especially includes immigrants, because I'm not of the belief that the boundaries of the church end at your walls or ends at your borders of your country.
You're exactly right.
I think all people around the world, they're still our brothers and sisters. So I do think we should be willing and able to welcome them into our homes. And that's the religious perspective of it. And I'll say at least for our church, I think we've done a really great job of that. At the same time, I understand that the church is made up of people with different views and different views for how they believe the country should function, and that's and that does intentionally, unintentionally, does sometimes bleed into how we go about treating the immigration issue. So I guess the most basic perspective for me, I think as a Christian, we should love people, we should welcome people, and we should we shouldn't discriminate where they may come from. As far as the politics goes, I do think that's a little bit different. So I don't know. That's another question altogether. If you know me, you know my perspective. I do believe in a very strong separation between religious and political viewpoints. And I think that can be said as well as far as immigration goes. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to say, I'm a Christian, so I believe in loving all people, but at the same time, I believe that we should have some immigration laws and some even you might even say strong immigration laws, because I think that's more of a political issue and a way of politics and how you think the country should be run. And the United States is not a Christian theocracy. If it was Christian theocracy as I see it, then it would probably be more open, because I believe that's more Christian theocracy. But it's not Christian theocracy. It's a country of many different people, and their views have to be represented. And even if people in the church, if they have if they see it a little bit differently, I don't think that necessarily makes them bad people or anything like that. I don't think if you're a person who I have more stronger immigration views, I don't think you're all of a sudden a less good Christian or anything like that.
Well, it's something I would hit on, because I differ from you on that of separation, because I don't think you can. But I would also say that I think, when we look through the Bible, I mean, God is a God of order. He's not just do whatever you want and have a good time. There is structure in place of things. And so I think that even having a Christian perspective would say, there needs to be a system of how to do it. Now, I'm not the expert on how to do said system, but I think that we need to have a system, and that system needs to work well for both parties, both immigrants and the country itself, because we could argue back and forth on whether or not that system is good for immigrants or not. But so I would say that God is a God of order.
That's a really awesome way to think about it.
So you're right.
That's a good perspective that I hadn't really thought about, the idea that because I've like I said, I am very more bullish on the idea of religious influencing policies, but I do agree that if you can reach a point where you can get something that works, because I do think as a Christian you should want to love people, so you should want policies that are going to do the most amount of good as possible. So you
and
can
protect people on both sides.
Protect people, yes. So I do think you could even approach. Even if you are more bullish on immigration or more staunch on immigration, you can approach it from a Christian perspective of love and care for all people involved in it.
I'm going to give, I know we're starting to wrap up. I'm going to give my closing thought on all this. And a lot of it I've shared. Jacob, what you just said was spot on. And you're talking about religion, what we should do as Christians. And you made a great point. You said as Christians, we should love other people. Our number one commandment is to love God with all of our heart, and as the same way, love others as ourselves. That's everybody, whether they're a part of our country or not. It doesn't mean, on the other hand, there's scripture that talks about, much of the Apostle Paul wrote, back when the Romans were oppressing the Jewish people, they were called to obey the Romans who were oppressing them. So we are called to go with the law of the land at the same time. So we obey. Think of I always put it down to our individual responsibility. A lot of people like to say America is a Christian nation. I don't like to say it that way because we are involved, or we are responsible for our own actions. God holds us accountable, each of us, for what we do, not our country, not our job, not our spouse, anything else. Me as a responsible Christian, I need to put God first and follow his commands. It means obeying the rules of the land, and I know there's a reason for the structure, and I'm glad there is, because otherwise, if you just allow anything to happen, then often you get chaos and you get crime and all that, which has happened. So I'm glad we're doing some things about that.
Yes.
But our responsibility is to love other people no matter what the situation. And if we have people come into our church, into our area that we don't agree with, we can have that discussion, but we are to love them through that. And so that's kind of where I go on this, and I love your feedback and your personal experience, and I think it's really helped us.
Yeah. Thank you, James.
Yeah.
You guys,
I hope that
podcast.
people listening, when they start thinking about immigration, they think less of systems and borders, and maybe start thinking more about people. And the families that are involved. So as Christians, and I think we're kind of all on the same viewpoint of, with the immigration issue, quotations, maybe instead of saying, what do I think about immigration, maybe instead it should be, okay, who am I willing to welcome? Who am I willing to love?
Yes.
Because like we have said on this podcast many times, that's our role as Christians.
Yes. I completely agree.
They're people.
Yes.
Immigrants, just like those of us who were born in America, we're all people from different experiences. Most of us are trying to do the right thing. Not everybody, but we need to look at each other as people that God made in his image.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. And if you leave here with anything, I think that's the most important thing to leave here with, the idea. No matter where you are in immigration, as long as you understand that it's not some pie in the sky idea. It's people, it's lives.
It's real.
If you approach it from that viewpoint with love, I think you're on the right track. Yeah. No matter where side of the aisle you're on, I think you're on the right track.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, James, thank you again.
Thank you, James,
for being here today and taking the time out of your day. What were you doing
helpful
today? Were you working today?
I didn't work today.
Okay.
Yeah, today I haven't really done much. I've been working on the lawn.
Play some video games, I would have guessed.
Yeah, play some
good air conditioned game.
I think
it's a good time of the year to do it.
Shows. Yeah.
Okay.
Did work.
All right. What's
lawn,
your top
stuff like that.
on the spot? Top 3 TV shows right now. Go.
Top TV shows. I'm rewatching Persons of Interest.
Okay.
Persons of Interest. Good one.
Let's see. Right now, it's Netflix. What am I watching?
Just thinking too much. You're thinking too much, James.
Okay,
come on, Persons of Interest.
Right now, I'm watching Dexter. I think I'm on season 3.
Okay, Dexter.
And then I'm rewatching. I actually just rewatched Roadhouse, but that's not a TV show.
The movie?
Yeah, the movie.
That was good.
That was really good. I'm just finished up Richer, the new season of Richer.
Oh, I love Richer. Yes.
Okay.
That was a good one.
I noticed The Chosen wasn't in there.
Okay.
By the way, I'm halfway through it. It's so good. The new season.
Reacher?
The
Chosen.
Yes, both were very good, but The Chosen is just so good. Yeah. Going through the Last Supper and
I didn't mean to make you feel bad.
No, you did. Good shows.
It is on my watch list. I should really. It's on Amazon now, so I have no reason not to.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. If today's episode meant something to you, we'd love it if you would share it with your friends, family members, maybe even if you hated it. Share it with other people and say how
can you believe what they're doing? Listen to this. John.
Yeah,
I won't be here for the next one, so if you just didn't listen to me, tune into the next one. It's not a.
We may get some extra librarians listening to this podcast.
Yeah,
hey, my mom said she would listen.
Share it.
So you're gonna have one more listener.
Hi, Angeline.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, again, James, thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody, we'll see you next time. Kyle, would you pray us out today?
Absolutely. Father, we thank you for this day we've had this time with James, and we just thank you for what you've given us here in this country. You've given us great freedom, great ability to do things that we want to do and to make choices on our own. But at the same time, we know there are a lot of people who are really struggling in this country. We know there are people that are in fear of their homes and their lives because there are criminal activity of people in and outside our country that are causing this. We just ask that you allow our governmental leaders to make wise choices to help keep our country safe, help us as individuals and citizens of America follow those laws, whatever they are, but most importantly, help us as Christians put you and put others above all else. Help us learn to love others as we love ourselves. Help us learn to treat others how we want to be treated, and just to try to empathize what some other people are going through that have struggles, and to pause and just help out where we can. Father, we need your help in this. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Generational Faith, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by Kyle Adamson and Jacob Zerkel. If you aren't already following our social media pages, we encourage you to give us a follow to see what we are all about. If you have topic suggestions or questions, please reach out to us on our social media pages that are linked in the description. And if you made it this far into the episode, as always, please share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us grow and spread the word of God to others.